There's a number that haunts the American dream. A nice, round, psychological finish line we've all been conditioned to chase. $1 million. It's the gold standard of financial success, the magic threshold where, theoretically, the anxiety stops. The alarm clock becomes optional, and life becomes a permanent vacation. We treat this number like a binary switch. 0 means you're struggling, and 1 million means you're free. However, if you actually peel back the curtain on the financial lives of average people, you discover that this benchmark is essentially a statistical ghost. Almost nobody actually has this amount of money sitting in a usable liquid account. And we're not talking about net worth, which is a vanity metric that includes your lawnmower and your vintage sneaker collection. We're talking about cold, hard cash invested specifically to pay for your survival when you stop working. When you isolate that specific bucket of wealth, the data reveals a terrifying discrepancy between perception and reality. The number of people crossing that finish line drops off a cliff. Before we dissect exactly why this gap exists and where you actually fall on the spectrum, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. We are going to deconstruct the myths of modern wealth, and you won't want to miss what is coming next. The reality of $1 million today is a far cry from the cultural image we established decades ago. In the mid-20th century, becoming a millionaire meant you were effectively royalty. It meant distinct luxury, private staff, and building a generational empire. Today, thanks to the relentless erosion of purchasing power, $1 million is simply the price of admission for a middle-class retirement that does involve worrying about the electric bill. It doesn't buy you a private island. It buys you sleep. It buys you the ability to navigate the medical system in your old age and the ability to maintain a standard of living that feels dignified rather than desperate. Yet, despite the bar being lowered in terms of purchasing power, the hurdle remains impossibly high for the vast majority of the population. When we look at the raw data from the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances, the picture is stark. The median retirement savings for all American households sits at a paltry $87,000. That's the median, meaning half of the country has less than that. But skeptics will argue that looking at all households is unfair because it includes 20-year-olds who have had time to save. Oh man. So let's look strictly at the people who are staring retirement in the face. Those between the ages of 55 and 64. Even in this critical pre-retirement demographic, the median savings balance is only around $185,000. That is less than 20% of the $1 million target. This reveals a massive systemic failure. We have an entire generation of workers who believe they are doing okay because they are re-looking at the wrong numbers, or perhaps they're conflating their total existence with their financial liquidity. They look at their paid-off suburban home, their 2 cars in the driveway, and their lifestyle, and they assume they are wealthy. But when you strip away the lifestyle assets and look strictly at the capital available to generate income, the cupboard is shockingly bare. To understand why this happens, we have to look at the breakdown of the millionaire population. Roughly 7% to 8% of American households qualify as millionaires, but this is a net worth statistic. It includes the inflated value of their primary residence, their vehicles, their personal property, and maybe a small business valuation. However, when researchers filter for people who have $1 million sitting in a 401k IRA or brokerage account money that is actually deployable for living expenses, that number collapses to roughly 2.6%. This means that out of every 100 people you walk past on the street, only 2 or 3 of them have actually secured their financial future in a liquid sense. Did you know that only about 3% of Americans will retire with over $1 million in savings? That's a shocking statistic. The other 97%? They're often stuck in a dangerous game, relying on assets they can't exactly use to buy groceries. Think about it. A paid-off house is a fantastic achievement. It lowers your living costs, which is a form of wealth. But you can't pay for your weekly shopping with a brick from your front porch. That wealth is trapped. It's dead equity until you either sell the roof over your head or take on new debt to access it. Both options seriously complicate your retirement plans. This leads to a huge difference between real estate and the stock market, explaining why so many people feel rich but are actually cash poor. Let's do some math. If you put $1 million into a diversified stock portfolio, historical data suggests it could double roughly every 7 years. So, your million becomes 2 million, then 4 million. It's exponential growth that happens while you sleep. Now, compare that to $1 million home. Real estate is a great store of value and a solid hedge against inflation, but it typically appreciates at a much slower rate, around 3 to 4% a year on average. In that same 7-year period where your stocks doubled, your home might have grown to 1.3 million. That's a good gain, but it's linear, not exponential. The opportunity cost of having your net worth tied up in drywall instead of dividends is the #1 reason we see so many house-rich, cash-poor retirees. So why is hitting that $1 million savings goal so hard for most people? The first reason is our behavior. We're living in an age of aggressive lifestyle inflation. Ever heard of the Diderot effect? It's when buying one new thing leads to a spiral of other purchases to match it. You get a promotion, so you buy a nicer car. But that car looks out of place in your old driveway, so you upgrade the house. The new house needs new furniture, and suddenly, that big raise you celebrated has vanished into monthly bills before you ever had a chance to invest it. Most people struggle to separate their income from their spending. As they earn more, they simply spend more. This is how you see high-income professionals, doctors, lawyers, tech workers living paycheck to paycheck on a $250,000 salary. They're earning a fortune, but keeping none of it. They're just a pipeline for money, moving it from their employer to the luxury car dealership and building zero real wealth in the process. The second barrier is a massive misunderstanding of time. The math of reaching $1 million is brutal if you start late, but incredibly forgiving if you start early. Our brains naturally think in a straight line. We think if we save a little now, we'll have a little later. We fail to grasp that $1 saved at age 25 is worth exponentially more than $1 saved at 45. To hit that $1 million mark, a 25-year-old might only need to invest about $300 a month. But a 45-year-old, starting from zero, they'd need to put away nearly $2,000 a month to reach the same goal by retirement. Most people spend their 20s and 30s getting established, buying homes, having weddings, raising kids, and they tell themselves they'll catch up on savings later. But the math of compounding doesn't care about your timeline. You can't get back those lost decades of growth you traded for short-term gratification without making huge, painful sacrifices later on. Finally, there is a dangerous reliance on what I call the great American bailouts, home equity, and Social Security. The average person sees their house as a piggy bank and the government as a safety net. They justify not saving by thinking, I'll just sell the house and downsize, or Social Security will cover my basic needs. This is an incredibly fragile strategy. Downsizing is often way more expensive than people realize. You have closing costs, moving expenses, and the harsh reality that a smaller condo in a nice area can cost just as much as the big family home you just sold. And Social Security. It was never designed to be a full retirement plan. Relying on these bailouts is a bet against your own future security. The path to $1 million isn't about getting lucky or earning a massive salary. It's about understanding the power of time, controlling your spending, and making your money work for you. It's about choosing liquid assets over dead equity. It's a choice that the 97% often realize too late. Don't be one of them. Let's get real about Social Security. The average monthly check is somewhere around $1,700 to $1,800. In most major cities, that's barely enough to get by. It was never meant to replace a full salary. It was designed as a safety net to prevent total poverty. Relying on it as your main retirement plan isn't a strategy. It's a surrender to a much lower standard of living. So, what's the magic number? You hear it all the time: $1 million. For many people, that figure sounds so huge they just give up. It feels like climbing Mount Everest without any gear. You look at your salary, do the math, and it just doesn't add up. So you quit the game before you even start. But here's the secret most people miss. The bulk of that $1 million doesn't come from your paycheck. It comes from the market, over a 40-year investment period. Your actual contributions might only be $200,000 or $300,000. The rest, that's $700,000 or $800,000, is generated by the market's return on your money. The economy does the heavy lifting, not your back-breaking work. Once you realize you're just the spark, not the entire bonfire, the goal becomes way less intimidating. The problem is, we're not taught this in school. So we think we have to earn every single dollar ourselves, which is just impossible for the average person. Now let's shift gears and talk about what having $1 million actually means in retirement. This is where the fantasy gets a reality check. If you follow the 4% rule, a common guideline, a $1 million portfolio lets you withdraw $40,000 in your first year. That's about $3,300 a month. Now, $40,000 a year might not sound like a fortune, but let's put it in perspective. If you're a married couple and you add 2 Social Security checks to that, your total household income could be around $80,000 or $90,000 a year. That's a solid, comfortable, middle-class life. It's secure, it's safe. But it's not lifestyles of the rich and famous. It doesn't mean spontaneous first-class trips to Paris. It means you can pay your property taxes, keep the heat on, and spoil your grandkids every now and then. This reframes the $1 million goal not as a ticket to luxury, but as the new baseline for basic security. This brings me to a crucial point: the difference between being a net worth millionaire and a retirement-ready millionaire. Net worth is an ego metric. Liquidity is a survival metric. You could own a huge farm and lots of equipment, giving you a net worth of $2 million. But if you only have $5,000 in the bank, you're cash poor and vulnerable. On the other hand, you could rent an apartment, own no real estate, but have $1.5 million in a dividend-paying investment portfolio. Your net worth is lower than the farmer's, but your financial freedom is infinitely higher. You have flexibility. You have options. You can wake up one morning and decide not to work because your assets are generating cash for you, not just sitting on a balance sheet looking pretty. The person with the high net worth owns assets. The person with high liquidity owns their time. The economic environment of the last decade has pushed many people down the wrong path. Low interest rates encouraged borrowing big to buy expensive houses, bloating net worth. Meanwhile, the slow and steady process of contributing to a 401k was seen as boring. Now, with higher interest rates and economic uncertainty, those who are house-rich are finding themselves stuck. They can't sell without losing their low mortgage rate, and they can't easily access their equity. But the consistent savers, the boring ones who drove used cars and maxed out their retirement accounts, they're in the driver's seat. They have capital that's not tied to the housing market, capital they can use however they want, whenever they want. The truth is, the entire system is built to separate you from your cash. Think about it. Marketing departments, credit card companies, even our culture all push us to spend, spend, spend. Spend. Every ad, every buy now, pay later offer is designed to keep you on the consumer treadmill. So, saving isn't just a financial habit, it's a quiet rebellion. It's a powerful refusal to play that game. That small group of people, the 2.6% of Americans who do hit that $1 million mark in liquid savings, they didn't just stumble into it. For most of them, it was a conscious choice, a decision they stuck with for decades to consistently live below their means. They understood a critical secret. Looking rich and actually being rich are almost always two different things. They chose to be rich. But here's the good news. the part that should really get you excited. You don't need a six-figure salary to join that exclusive club. What you need is consistency. It's not about how much you make, but how much you keep. Let's break it down with a real-world example. If you're 30 years old and you max out a Roth IRA, which is less than $600 a month right now, you can hit $1 million by the time you're ready to retire. And the best part? That money is tax-free. Now, if you're starting later in life, the path is a bit steeper, no doubt about it. You might have to save more aggressively, but the fundamental principle doesn't change. Every single dollar you shift from the consumption pile to the investment pile is like recruiting a tiny soldier to fight for your future financial freedom. Even if you don't hit that magic $1 million number, what if you hit $500,000? That alone puts you leagues ahead of the average person. Combine $500,000 in savings with a paid-off home and your Social Security benefits, and you've built a fortress of security. That's a life with options, a life with peace of mind. The goal here isn't just about chasing a seven-figure number for bragging rights. It's about building a life where your choices are dictated by the desperate need for your next paycheck. It's about freedom. Think of it this way. Your total net worth, including your house, is like checking the oil level in your car. It's good to know, but it doesn't tell you if the engine is actually running. What truly matters, what gets you where you want to go, is the fuel. That fuel is your liquid savings, your cash flow, and your investments. So do you get distracted by the illusion of wealth that's propped up by rising property values and a mountain of debt? Focus on the slow, steady, and honestly, unglamorous accumulation of assets that actually produce an income for you. That is the only real path to ensure that when you finally decide to walk away from your job, you're walking into a life of genuine freedom, not just a slightly bigger budget to manage. The statistics might seem scary at first, but they're only scary if you ignore them. Once you face the numbers, you can start making a plan. And once you have a plan, you can win. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more.